Hello, everybody, and welcome to the... Oh, what are we calling this now? This is the Eternal Community League Tuesday Weekly. Why is it called that, you may ask? Well, that is a complex question, well, simple question, rather, with a somewhat complex answer. The short of it is, we are now running a full-on tournament with monthly invitationals and prize support. We're going to dive right into the games for now with the Overmaster versus Prime Temps, and that's going to be me, Cygnus, and my co-caster, who I haven't given a chance to talk yet.
Hey, it's Duncan Wren.
How are you doing today, Duncan?
I'm doing okay. I'm excited to be able to cast. Usually I'm behind the TO seat, but for today I am able to cast.
Well, that's really good.
I'm excited. Tuesday nights are usually bad nights for me, but tonight's actually working out well to where I can enjoy Eternal. So I'm really excited to watch the games tonight, and we have some actually really good players.
Yeah, we do. We have Overmaster and Let's Ace, and of course, his opponent this round, Prime Temps and Solar Flare, are our four players for tonight.
Prime Temps, I actually really have. I'm fairly new to Eternal. I've been playing for a few months, 6 or 7 months by now. And Prime Temps is a name that I haven't heard up until about the past 2 months. But everything I've seen from him, he's just played phenomenally. So I'm really excited to see him play more. And the other names are people that, of course, we know from playing Eternal.
Yeah, it would be hard not to know them at this point. You'd have to be living under a rock.
That is the truth. So for deck list, Just taking a quick glance, it looks like Prime Temps is on the deck that I've been playing, and I actually got it from him. I took it from one of the previous nights that he played, but it is the Praxis Warp deck, and I will tell you that this is the most fun I've had playing Eternal in quite a while. I think it's such a beautiful, beautiful deck.
I am still incredibly skeptical of it. Yeah.
You're allowed to be skeptical of it. I think that it has its weaknesses, but I think a place like this is a great place to give it its runs. You're going to be playing against good players, and you're not risking a lot when it comes to points, even on a.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, right now we aren't worried about points. That starts in August, but Tuesday and Thursday nights are the perfect place to come and try these out.
Yeah. So the Overmaster is restarting his client real quick because fix your mobile client, Direwolf. Hopefully we'll be able to spectate soon. There we are. And we will now be able to get into the match.
I'm quite excited. It looks like that he is playing the Stirring Sands Reanimator with the Back Alley Delinquent, which in my opinion is quite the sleeper card. Like, whenever that card was announced, I didn't see a lot of people blowing up about it, but that card has done a phenomenal job in this specific type of build.
Yeah, there have been various different Reanimator strategies that have made great use of Back Alley Delinquent in particular, because a lot of that reanimation tech is, of course, in Shadow.
That is so true. One of the things that I've been most impressed about it is that it gives you such a strong card off of it, too. You get a Sabotage, which is, in my opinion, pretty strong against a Prime Temps deck, because if you remove the one that allows your warps to be cheaper, and man, it's just hard to come back from that.
Right.
Taking a look at the hands, it looks like Overmaster has the weakest hand possible, with the exception of having a Torch.
Yeah.
Torch is strong, but everything else looks like things you want to. Power looks fine, actually, but you definitely don't want the 2 8-drops in your hand without any way to ramp into them.
Yeah. So, over on Prime Temps side of things, we're going to see stuff that can start to be played on turn 2, which is definitely more where you want to be in Eternal. And the Overmaster does get to draw a Quarry. That should help a lot.
Quarry is definitely a strong pickup. And one thing to note from Prime Temp's side is you did not want to be seeing that's not what you want to be seeing on top of your deck there in turn 1, because that's a card you want to be able to
cast off the top.
Yes, cast off the top and never have to see that in your hand. Unless you're playing Charge Rod, and then I guess you're okay with it. But this isn't a Charge Rod deck.
Yeah. Unlike Charge Rod, where you want to have it sitting around in your hand so that you can cast it and the rod at the same time, that's the sort of thing that you want to be just casting off the top so that you're increasing the number of things you get to essentially draw in a turn. Baby boy, childish Gambino.
And one thing we see right here is Prime Temps is looking like he's going to want to play the power cards get warped. That is definitely what you want to be playing on your turn 4. Go ahead and start thinning out the top of your deck with power cards. And with that, it's almost like everything is a free scribe, because from what I can remember, the only cards that don't have warp with that out would be the Temple Scribe. So if you don't see a power card or a creature on top, it's probably a Temple Scribe.
It looks like with the way that this version of the deck is built, those could be Aurelian Merchants or Xenon Obelisks as well.
Oh yeah, it's true. I forgot about those two. Two really good cards. Now that's what you want to see off the top. He's gonna attack in here, and it looks like there's gonna be probably a power or one of the ones that you had mentioned before on top. And that's one thing that I've found really powerful about the deck, is you can kind of guess what your next card's gonna be.
Right. The Overmaster now is getting to do the thing that his deck wants to do, which is reanimate Giant Sentinels. In this case, that is a Lava Blood Goliath that kills one of the Alluring Embers and deals 5 damage to Prime Temps' face because of the overwhelm that Lava Blood Goliath, of course, has.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting kill that he decided to kill one of the Flyers. Personally, I think I would have actually gotten rid of the 2/1, because those can add up pretty quickly to kill off your your Goliath, but maybe he's a little worried about the poke damage with how fast this deck can burn with Heart of the Vault and the other warp damage dealing cards.
Yeah, the thing is, when I look at the deck that Prime Times is running, I see this is a Praxis tokens list with a lot of warp cards instead of token producers. And like the ways I've seen it win have always been through basically being a Praxis tokens deck.
That's actually a really fair assessment. And I've noticed that playing the deck myself today, actually yesterday was the first day I've actually got to sit down and play the deck. But it definitely does play out more like a tokens, especially late game when you have one or two of the warp cards are reduced by 2. You can just continuously play off the top of your deck and just try and keep a scry card, try and keep a scout for whenever you have a power on top and ship that to the bottom and hope you can continue with your train.
Here's a cool strategy that Prime Temps makes use of. Playing the Heart of the Vault there, knowing he didn't know what the top card of his library was, his deck, because it wasn't showing up, and since he had that Waystone Infuser in play, he knew that meant it was either a Temple Scribe, Aurelian Merchant, or Xenon Obelisk. That seems like a totally fine time to play Heart of the Vault, because one of those you can play for free if you pick it up off the Heart of the Vault, and that's the one he got. Another one of those only costs 1, and that would be essentially free if it happened to be that the next card on your library after that was a power source, because of course Waystone Infuser is there to allow him to play it right off the top.
Yeah, exactly. And one thing you notice that's really smart about him is not playing that out to draw the power source that was on top of it, or draw the whatever was on top of his deck. He chose not to do that. He instead held it so that whenever he had another one of these blank terms, as you want to call it, where you can't see the top card of your deck, he knew that he could warp. He could draw the card, and hopefully it would be another Temple Scribe or the Obelisk, which are both great cards that you want to see. So that was a really smart play by him.
Now, this game is over in Prime Temps' favor. That is an unfortunate side effect of playing a Reanimator deck. The Overmaster drew all of his massive units and was never able to play them, because the deck isn't generally designed to stay alive while getting up to 8 and 9 power.
That is so true. And one thing we noticed about, like you were mentioning earlier, is that it almost plays out like a tokens list. And we definitely saw that in that game. We saw the consistency where you just attack in with 2 units, even if you're only dealing 1 additional damage. That 1 damage is quite relevant.
Right. And it's one of those decks where, since you pretty much always have multiple units in play, you don't really care that maybe 1 or 2 are dying each attack.
Absolutely. A lot of these units are disposable. They're units that you don't mind to lose, and we definitely saw it there.
So, in the Overmaster's redraw right there, when he mulliganed that hand, you might have gotten a short glimpse of another card that plays out a lot like Black Alley Delinquent, and that is Learned Herbalist. Herbalist. Learned Herbalist. That's kind of a tongue twister there.
Yeah. It's another good discard outlet for your big creatures since you're playing time, and it's also a decent way to gain life if you're actually able to play a couple spells off of it, which in this list is against Prime Temps is not something that you're going to take for granted.
Yeah, and that secret pages that Learned Herbalist does make actually can prove to be relevant as well. Because since you do have all of these massive Great Kiln Titans and Lava Blood Goliaths that sometimes do get stuck in your hand, that can be a way to actually play them. Just by increasing your overall amount of power.
Absolutely. And one other thing is that he has such a demanding curve with your 5-drop wanting to have 2 shadow sources and your 6-drop wanting to have 3 fire and 3 time. You have such a demanding curve. So right now, grabbing another shadow source would be phenomenal.
Well, Phenomenal is an interesting way of putting it because we saw that Stirring Sand get shipped to the bottom off of a scout, as it's going to be pretty hard to make use of reanimation when you don't actually have anything to reanimate. And that is what the Overmaster is currently dealing with. He's not going to, at this rate, not going to have anything to do until those Heart of the Vault turns. Now, Aurelian Merchant can change that up a bit, but the thing is, what you can get out of the market is Sandstorm Scarf, Banish, Stirring Sand, Passage of Aeons, or Xenon Banner. My guess is that's going to be a Banish because he's expecting that his opponent just went and got... Oh, actually, it doesn't hit Workshop Forge. That's an issue. I suspect that Overmaster is realizing this now and is possibly considering grabbing Passage of Aeons instead. That said,
it's definitely
Prime
a
Temps
consideration.
didn't even get the core of the deck, which is kind of strange. What did Prime Temps instead grab?
I don't actually remember saying what he grabbed. It's not really the fun answer, but it's the unfortunate truth for me. But one thing we do see is we're going to see a lot of Heart of the Vaults in this game. We're going to see at least 4 of them.
Yeah. Oh, so the Overmaster went with the Xenon Banner to be able to play those Grasping at Shadows. That's another option that was definitely available, and in this particular situation might be the correct option. However, Prime Temps did draw into that Workshop Forge, so that is something that the Overmaster is going to probably have to worry about at this point, because that means that everything that Prime Temps wants to warp off the top is going to be too cheaper. A lot of the cards that Prime Temps is going to warp off the top already cost 2 or 1.
Yes, that is so true. Playing the Obelisk Scout right now, I really like that play. It prevents your units from being killed, and next turn they're going to be buffed. I don't think that playing out to reduce your warp is going to be the greatest thing. I think next turn it will be okay to play out, especially because you'll be able to successfully use your power to play that plus the deal 2 damage warp card.
Right, and we see there that the Heart of the Vault gets up to an 8/8 thanks in part due to the Xenon Obelisk and in part due to the +1/+1 weapon from the Journeyman Armor. That's enough that the Overmaster can't kill it even with the double block, so we just see the Overmaster take it and is now at 14, and Prime Temps is definitely running a deck that can make that a problem.
The one thing we see here is the Banish from the Overmaster, which I think is the correct grab. Now the question is, do you want to fire that off now, or are you going to wait until he attacks in with it? Oh, I guess he's not going to do either, honestly. He's going to go with the Heart of the Vault to have more of a blocker out.
Having more blockers here is very understandable. Picking up that torch as well is nice because that means that he's able to kill off the Aurelian Merchant. Now, I like the idea of having the Banish as a plan for dealing with these various things that his opponent is doing, because you can banish a Xenon Obelisk in combat in a way that allows you to eat an opponent's unit that you otherwise wouldn't have.
I agree completely. I think Banish is the strongest card right now for him. I think it's a combat trick in the opposite direction, or it's just a combat trick in general if you want to go and attack into it with both of your Heart of the Vaults and then destroy it.
There's still something to be said for Passage of Aeons, especially in this situation where Prime Temps has a Workshop Forge in hand and a Workshop Forge on top of the deck. That could total up to at least 3 different relics in play for Prime Temps, and you could have been able to destroy all of those at once with Passage of Aeons.
That is true, and one thing I can say from playing this deck is 2 of those on top, 2 of the warps cost 2 less two less relics. Those, two of those almost feels like you can play your entire deck, except for the ability to play multiple power in a turn.
Right, and that's actually another one of the things that I kind of dislike about this Praxis Warp deck is that you can still only ever play one power per turn, and I'm looking at it and saying, aren't I supposed to go infinite? I can't go infinite because there's a power on top of my deck, and I already played a power this turn. Now, maybe I'm undervaluing the value of the deck as a value deck. Yes, that statement was intentional.
I'm not sure if you're undervaluing it as a value deck, but Prime Tim's play right there kind of confused me. I thought it was a little odd that he decided to play out the because that could have been a free card, honestly, a free card, and then you could have held up your held up the additional 2 damage if need be. But this attack right here definitely shows he's ready to go ahead and banish and for a good combat trick.
Yeah, not only will the Overmaster be able to banish here as a combat trick, but after the combat, if one of his units dies, either his Heart of the Vaults or even his Aurelian Merchant, he can use Grasping at Shadows to play it from the void, get it back, and if that's the Merchant, that means that he can perhaps go and grab that Passage Vans out of the market. And if it's a Heart of the Vault, that means that maybe he gets to stack a bit more damage onto a unit that otherwise wouldn't be dying here.
One thing we need to remember is that the Heart of the Vault will be a 7/7, so even though this one's going to end up killing it, I assume he's going to Grasping Shadows it and go to kill off that Heart of the Vault that's a 7/7.
Yeah, it looks like that's the play here. Here we see, Heart of the Vault has returned, and it is going to kill its larger brethren. So, we saw the 5-cost Grasping at Shadows. Now in the Overmaster's hand, we have the 4-cost Grasping at Shadows and the 3-cost Grasping at Shadows. Really makes it easy to be power efficient with your Grasping at Shadows.
It does, and the one unfortunate thing we're seeing from Prime Temp's side is that he is hitting blanks by having these powers or non-warp cards on top of his deck, and that's really slowing him down quite a bit. He's only able to get maybe half a card a turn instead of what he would be wanting to get with 3 or 4 cards due to warp.
Right, and at this point he's only at 12. 2 hits from Heart of the Vaults is lethal. Like, hits from attacks, not hits from the Heart of the Vault's ability. And the thing is, even blocks that trade with the Heart of the Vaults aren't exactly really that great for Prime Temps either because of those Grasping at Shadows.
It's definitely a difficult situation if you assume they have more Grasping at Shadows or any reanimates, which you kind of have to assume that they do at this point. If that's the case, you definitely don't want to kill them unless you have a magical way to wipe the board. Otherwise, I think this is a good call with just being able to chump block, but I think you've lost the game at this point.
Oh yes, absolutely. And reanimating the Merchant there does get that Passage of Aeons. It's too expensive to play this turn, but on top of everything else, the Overmaster will be able to prevent Prime Temps from going off ever in this game. Unless he goes off right now. And
right now is definitely the turn he needs to go off.
Might allow it to happen, but no, there's nothing else with Warp on top of Prime Temp's deck, so that's a concession from Prime Temps. And we move on to Game 3, where both players have won one. Now, we've seen both decks do what they want to, and both decks show their weaknesses already. And which deck do you think is going to do what it wants to this time? And which deck is going to show its weakness? Are both decks going to show their weaknesses? Is neither deck going to show its weaknesses? If those are the case, which deck do you think is favored?
Personally, I think that the Overmaster has a favorite deck. I think it's a little more consistent, but honestly, personally, I'm hoping that the Warp will end up pulling out the win.
I see. Well, either way, I think that the winner is going to be the one running Heart of the Vault. So, We're just taking a moment for the players to get back in the game. Currently, I have a short bit of solo cast. While we're preparing for the next game, I'm going to tell the players to perhaps hold off until we have two casters, or we can fire away either way. Yeah, let's keep this running.
All right, I'm back now.
All right, you just missed the players getting into the next game. Here we have the Overmaster who took a mulligan and didn't get much value out of that mulligan. This is a fairly tough hand, but it's still better than a single power hand. Over on Prime Temp's side of things, we see the deck. Like, all of those cards I have seen played in tokens decks, even Alluring Ember. I don't think Alluring Ember is good in a tokens deck, but I've seen it played in tokens decks.
I think that this game right here is very reminiscent of the first game that they played, even down to the point of having the Ember on top of the deck.
Yep, it very much is. And if we recall back to that first game, that was won by Prime Temps.
It was won by Prime Temps, but he did have a really good chain off of warping, and hopefully for his sake that he's able to find another one that's similar. And from the looks of it, it's looking like it could be that way.
Yeah, over on the Overmaster side of things, he's hoping to be able to pick up some of those sleeper cards, as you called them, the Back Alley Delinquents or the Learned Herbalist.
Both of which definitely are sleeper cards. I don't think we actually estimated correctly how well discarding in this game would be, especially discarding it, getting value from both discarding it and getting a card from it. So it's almost like you get a free half a card in a way.
Yeah, you'd think we'd have known by now with the value of Scream decks and everything. But here we see Prime Temps with that turn 4 Xenon Obelisk and Alluring Ember play, allowing him to be attacking for 6 this turn. It definitely does get slowed down a fair bit by that Sandstorm Titan, though.
I agree. And Prime Temps is in a really tough spot right now. He's not losing the game at any point, at any rate, but it's difficult to think about what you want to do because you have a lot of different options. Do you want to see what the top of your deck is going to be after a Heart of the Vault? Do you want this in your hand for one cost, or would you rather just play it off the top right now? And it looks like he's opting to play it off the top right now, which I think personally is the right call.
Yes, and, I agree with the choice to play the card off the top whenever the card on the top of your deck has warp and is something you cast, because it's card draw. It's essentially drawing extra cards whenever you do that.
It is, and we're probably going to see the fire sigils definitely going to the bottom. And drawing this right here actually isn't the worst thing in the world. Right now you can attack in, and it doesn't matter which one he blocks. You can kill off his Sandstorm Titan next turn.
Yeah, and due to being able to do that next turn, Prime Temps chooses not to do any of that this turn. So the Overmaster sees a torch off of a Xenon Crest of Mystery. He chooses to send that to the bottom after much deliberation. I agree with that choice because at this point the Overmaster needs to be able to find some reanimation. He needs to be able to get that Lava Blood Goliath out of the void to be able to win. Sure, he could kill one of Prime Temps units, but he's going to be able to do that once per turn at this rate either way, except that the Sandstorm Titan is going to die to double hip shot.
Yeah, Sandstorm Titan's definitely going to get eaten up by hip shot, and that allows his creatures to get back to flying. So right now, the Overmaster really wants to see a way to reanimate the Sandstorm Titan any way that you can at this point, honestly.
Yeah, and that draw right there was not a way to reanimate the Sandstorm Titan. Now, the Overmaster is not dead on board, but if we look over to Prime Temp's hand, either thing he plays out of that hand does make it a lethal attack. So it looks
Yep.
like this game and thus this match is going to be going to prime tips, just like you hoped to see.
I am partial towards the word deck because I have been playing it all day today, but I actually like both decks, and it's actually been a really interesting matchup. These are two decks that I think are perfect for these Tuesday and Thursday night events. Decks that have potential, but you want to be able to get more runs with them. And I think the best of three series is best for being able to test out these niche decks.
Right, so that was the end of round one. Let's either head to a break or maybe between rounds we could talk a little bit about the Eternal Community League. What do you think?
I'm ready to shell out for the Eternal Community League right now. I say shell out, but everything I'm saying is completely unbiased for because I've only spent money out of my own pocket. I've never been paid to say anything. So one thing that I'm very excited about is for our Eternal. One thing that's really exciting about the weekly events is that we have a Tuesday night targeted towards NA players, and we have a Thursday night that's targeted towards EU players, both of which are not meaning that you can't play in the other one, but it's definitely targeted as far as times go for NA and EU players. And Fridays are going to stay the same. We're going to push them back an hour to make it a little more convenient for NA players, but I think we actually see more EU players than anything at this point for Friday nights.
Right, and you were talking about how these events are going to award points. Let's explain what those points are for.
So we're doing monthly invitationals. One thing that we thought would be interesting is to have a monthly cash prize. So we're doing our support through Match Arena, and the top 16 point earners are going to be invited on the final Sunday of every month. So you don't have to worry about it being a following month, but it's going to be the last Sunday of every month. So we have it planned out for the next 15 years, actually. But right now, the plan is the final Sunday of every month to have this invitational. It's going to be a double elimination bracket. So things are going to flow super smooth through everything. 2 losses and you're out. And I think that it will be an interesting thing because we actually haven't seen a double elimination bracket yet for Eternal. But we will almost have no downtime because of that. People will be able to play their matches naturally, and we're going to get a lot of high-level Eternal play, all for a cash prize. And the Sunday challenges that are earlier in the week, the ones that aren't in the Invitational, those are actually heavily weighted. You get double points for playing in them, and you get double points for a win in each one of them. And top 8 awards 10 points for top 8ing, 15 points for top 4, 20 points for second place, and 25 points for first place. And I'm telling you that is the goal, is you want to be top 8ing and you want to be able to finish these out, because a win on a Sunday could honestly be more points than someone who can barely skip up 3 wins every single day. So we definitely have targeted towards a a competitive. It's definitely targeted more towards competitive, but we want to be able to keep these Tuesdays and Thursdays free for NA and EU players to test out new and niche decks. And Casual Friday, the one awesome thing about Casual Friday is you get a point for entering in it and playing for 2 rounds. So you want to bring your meme decks. We want to encourage people to have fun, test out new decks if they want to, that they may not want to bring on a Tuesday or Thursday, and to bring fun stuff like Scream Heart of the Vault.
Yeah. How exactly do you get Heart of the Vault cheap enough to Scream? By Heart of the Vaulting another Heart of the Vault?
So there's a couple of ways. I accidentally tried this drunk on stream one time.
I believe it.
The secret is to hit with the Crimson Firemaw.
Yes.
The way that you want to be able to do it.
Well, I'm thinking we should dive into the next match. Perhaps we follow the Overmaster around so that we see every single match, or we could follow Prime Temps here to watch him play against Solar Flare. That would be an interesting match, perhaps, because both of those players are winners at this time.
I think that's a good idea. I think Prime Temps and Solar Flare will actually be a good matchup.
Yeah, if you want to watch Lights Out Ace's point of view, I suppose he's probably streaming. But, you can do a stream. Watch both. So let's dive into Solar Flare versus Prime Temps once the players are ready. I'll get Solar Flare. You can get Prime Temps, because you already had Prime Temps. So, we obviously know Prime Temps' deck, the Warp deck. Over on Solar Flare's side of things, we're going to see...
Rakano mid-range?
Yeah. This is the style of Rakano deck that has been seeing some play and did well in the last Eternal Tournament series, as far as I recall. It's the deck that uses really powerful 2-drops in Bullet Shaper and Akari Valkyrie Captain that allows it to ramp up into the Akari the Liberator or Rajan Greatbowmaster.
I'm actually really torn on this style of deck. It's definitely a mid-range deck, but I have an argument against this style of deck where you're running harsh rules and end of stories. I understand that it's really good against the tokens list, and you do have discard outlets to get rid of it, but it almost feels like it's half the time you want it and half the time you don't, which makes me curious if you should commit one way or the other. Would you rather have more aggressive threats, or would you rather play a more controlling style? Because I feel like you're trying to get the best of both worlds, and I don't think it's going to end up well.
It definitely seems counterintuitive, but in this particular case, I can see a possibility for how to make use of that. In part because you have Whirling Does, which are a charging threat, and in part because you have Merchants, which can ship away or go grab Harsh Rule if you particularly need it or particularly don't need it in whatever the matchup is.
That's a really good point you bring up with the Merchants. The Merchants do allow us to have a little more flexibility with what you want to be able to keep, what you want to be able to play, because you can go grab a Harsh Rule if you want to out of your market. You can also ship one away if you think that it's not going to be of any help. But honestly, in this matchup, I think it is going to be of some help.
Right, for sure. As you said, the Harsh Rules are really good against those Praxis Token style decks. Well, Prime Temps is kind of running a Praxis Token style deck.
It's definitely leaning towards the Praxis, the token style deck. But what he really wants to see right now, in my opinion, is some power off the top.
Yeah, instead he's seen a Heart of the Vault off the top. Now Solar Flare is making use of some of that power that he's got to kill things that Prime Temps plays. However, Solar Flare is also needing power off the top now too. And in this case, Prime Temps has better access to card draw, sort of card draw, in the case of being able to play units off the top like he did that turn.
Now, one thing that I noticed is Prime Temps did something beautiful that I think players need to do more of. He attacked in to see if he had a combat trick, which is something that you can't really hide in Eternal. So he noticed that he attacked in and he had a fast spell, so he went ahead and played out a creature that he did not mind getting torched. What he didn't want torched is the any type of mana ramp, and that would have ended up happening if he played it out. So I think playing out the Cinder Yeti was a beautiful, beautiful play.
Yes. Now, Solar Flare did get some temporary mana ramp in that Bullet Shaper that will allow him to, for the cost of probably that Rise to the Challenge, one of those Rise to the Challenges, be able to play a 5-cost spell this next turn. And that's probably going to be Harsh Roll. But maybe not, because you'd only be Harsh Rolling 2 units. And the alternative play is to play another Bullet, since he drew that, and on the next turn maybe throw away 2 Rise to the Challenges to play Rizan, or maybe draw a power and be able to play Rizan otherwise. Instead, it looks like Solar Flare is going to be blocking with one of the Bullet Shapers in a way that causes it to die, and trading off so that Prime Temps only has the Aurelian Merchant in play right now.
I'm not sure if I agree with that block. I think he's either banking for a harsh roll at this point, or I guess he's not banking for a harsh roll because he decided not to block otherwise. But he's definitely confused by his play on that one, especially drawing an Icaria.
Yeah, if he's going to be playing a harsh roll, then why would he be sacrificing? Well, if he's going to be playing a harsh roll, it makes sense to sacrifice 1 Bullet Shaper and to sacrifice it to the bigger damage dealer. But then his opponent played a Heart of the Vault, and instead he just silenced the Heart of the Vault, which doesn't do anything in this matchup.
That's confusing. So, like, if I was playing against the Overmaster, I think silencing the Heart of the Vault's not a horrible idea. But right here, I mean, you really want to be silencing the mana ramp, because hitting 8 power is extremely relevant in this matchup.
I'm wondering if Solar Flare has already given up because, well, the game's over at this point. I think he may have just gotten discouraged by being stuck on power like that. Something that I can totally understand may have resulted in some misplays in this particular case. But as always, we should be able to get into the next match pretty quickly. This next game of the match.
Yeah, I actually do think that he was probably discouraged from that game. I think the misplay would have been, I think you should have either harsh ruled or committed to the Risen earlier, or not the Rizon, not the Rise, but the right. Rizon. I think committing to either that or the harsh rule earlier was a great call. But
so,
we'll see how it plays out.
How do you personally avoid perhaps going on tilt due to Power Screw or Power Flood? It's something, the Power Screw and Power Flood is something that can happen to everybody. And you haven't been playing Eternal for very long if you haven't experienced one or the other.
Yeah, it's definitely a tough thing, and I think this is something that the longest article that could ever be written about Eternal or Magic the Gathering for that point, any card game that uses this style of mana, this style of mana resource or power, I think that it's difficult to not be on tilt. But I think what helps me not be on tilt is the unique ways that you can play with power at this point, such as merchants to grab an additional power, or merchants to ship away other powers. The scout, now that we have a full set of all scouts, I think that your mana curve is allowed to be a little more greedy with the scouting. And one thing I don't think people are taking enough advantage of that we used to see in Magic Gathering back in the Theros block was people using off color, or in this case off faction scouts. I think that is one thing that we should be doing more of. I think that would help with curving out better.
Right, that is definitely an option. Say if you're a 2-faction deck, rather than only running 3, or only running your one set of 4 crests, you might instead choose to run some additional crests that only provide you one of your factions, but still provide you that scout. That is how powerful the scout can sometimes be.
Scout almost feels like, I know we don't want to call it half a card because warping or drawing an additional card or something, we almost want to call us half a card. Like Heart of the Vault would get you a card and half of value. But I honestly feel like Scout could be a quarter of a card. So if we jam 4 additional ones into our deck, I think that could honestly be considered another card. And I think that could maybe bring you up a percent or two for win percentages. But it's something that, of course, needs to be tested.
Right. I have a particular deck I'm going to want to try it out with in the future. That's going to also make use of that slight splash into an extra faction.
What's interesting is we actually saw that on Sunday. We saw I can't remember exactly. I think it was Eric Kyoto. He ended up bringing a temporal control deck. It was actually Huru. It was Huru that brought 9 time sources, but it only brought 1 shadow card, and that 1 shadow card was the last word. And I'm so amazed with that deck that I'm actually writing an article on that entire deck on its own. I think it's a beautiful, beautiful deck, and that's a good way to have additional scout cards. He ran 4 sources of shadow, and I think that's all that his deck needed. And I think that was such a benefit playing the deck out on its own, was that you had the additional scouting.
So in this game, we see a situation where I believe Solar Flare is incredibly advantaged at this point.
Absolutely. He is. I think he's on a roll right now. Once you have the melee start to attack, you get free chump blockers, which is the most beautiful thing in the world.
Yeah, and after a couple of attacks, they're no longer chump blockers. They trade or even eat your opponent's creatures, especially when your opponent's creatures are largely 2/2s and 3/3s and stuff, even with Xenon Obelisk can play.
Oh, definitely. What do you like to do right now from Prime Temps? What is your ideal play?
Concede and go play a better deck? But no, seriously, I think this is not quite the right time to be playing Heart of the Vault, because picking up Alluring Ember off the top is not an incredibly good feeling. So I personally would have been playing the Alluring Ember, seeing what I see off the top, and possibly just committing some more stuff to the board. Like specifically that Workshop Forge there.
I think my play would have been the Workshop Forge, and then see if you can go deep off the top. You have 1 additional mana, 1 additional power, so like a Cinder Yeti would have been a good card. But at this point, honestly, I think Solar Flare is taking control of the game. I don't really see much of a comeback unless we see a really strong run from Solar Flare.
Yeah,
a really strong run from Temps.
Yeah, this is the sort of situation where Prime Temps is the one who needs the harsh rules.
One thing that really stuck with me whenever I first started playing, I'm not sure who it was that said it, but they said, if you would be bringing, this is back when sideboarding was a thing. They said if you would be bringing in, if you would be playing the opponent's deck and you would be bringing in harsh rules against you, then you need to take them out of your deck, and vice versa. Like, that's how you tell if you want harsh rules in. And if I was Prime Temps, honestly, I'd be bringing in harsh rules in this deck against this deck.
Right. But nowadays, I do think there are some legitimate excuses for having harsh rules in a deck that doesn't necessarily seem like it's supposed to be having harsh rules. Because, like, especially in this particular matchup, I feel like you're either casting harsh rule or you're winning.
I agree. I think harsh rule being a 5 power thing, and either, especially with the Solar Flares deck, you can actually play it on turn 3 if you wanted to. But what I think its real goal is turn 5 harsh rule, turn 6 play a big threat. Yes.
Or something, yeah. That's definitely an option. So now we've seen both players take a win, and once again, we're going to get a game 3.
Always excited to see a game 3.
Yeah.
One thing worth note, LOA Lights Out Ace did end up taking the Overmaster 2-0.
Oh, poor Overmaster, not really getting that lucky with this deck today.
Yeah, today is definitely not his day. But it looks like that Lights Out Ace is playing the Alicia Combre with the TJP deck.
Is it TJP? I thought I didn't see any Primal out of him. I guess I'm going to have to go back and look. Oh, yeah, he's totally playing Primal. What am I saying? He's running the version with Crown Rush Press Kings, which is an interesting choice.
I have a soft spot in my heart for that deck.
Oh, yeah, Press King. Oh, for the deck in general, yeah. I do like the general style he's going with for that, but that's obviously not the match that we're watching here.
It's not. Looking at the mulligans, I think Solar Flare, I can't see all of his cards. It looks like that's probably a Merchant and a Fire Sigil hidden behind the
I can say that is indeed a Merchant and a Fire Sigil hidden behind his icon.
Blindly looking at both hands off this top, it's honestly either person's game. Prime Temps has just as equally strong / weak of a hand as Solar Flare does.
Yeah, neither player's hand really does anything right now. So, now here's the thing. We saw Solar Flare lead off with the Seed of Glory into Seek Power play, and then follow up with a depleted Rakano banner, and not play Ikaria Valkyrie Captain on 2. How do you feel about that?
I'm honestly curious if he's waiting to use the Captain with a buff, trying to buff by grabbing a Razan or an Ikaria, or anything, honestly, because I think that's one of the more underplayed parts of it, instead of it just being a ramp card. Because at this point, there's not a ton to ramp into.
Right, and in this particular situation, the Ikaria would probably wind up dying to that hip shot.
Yeah, that's one thing you definitely have to be careful of when playing against Prime Temps deck, is that you have a hip shot, which is almost always going to be a threat.
Oh, well, I guess that's why Solar Flare chose not to play the Ikaria. Solar Flare wanted to send Ikaria to the market to go get a Harsh Rule.
I'm actually not sure if I agree with that play. I think sending a Sigil to the bottom, or sending a Sigil to the market, and then playing out the draw 2 Sigils, the
Privilege of Rank.
Privilege of Rank, yes. Grabbing that up.
Yeah, I think I would have generally preferred that as well. However, Solar Flare does top deck exactly what I was looking for in the Rise to the Challenge, allowing him to go get an Amelie that is going to have 6 power and 8 toughness. That's a big boy.
One thing that's relevant about it is, though, it will not be seeing its wings very long. It will end up being grounded by the Sandstorm Scarf.
True. You see, Prime Temps preemptively playing out that Sandstorm Scarf since most of Solar Flare's deck is Valkyrie, who can of course fly.
Yep, I definitely agree with that grab. I think that's one of the more strong cards in the market, especially since you already have a workshop to. I'm not sure if he runs workshop in this market. I need to check, but I don't think that he does actually.
I do believe he does indeed have a market in the workshop, or workshop in the market.
No, none in the market.
No, it does not.
The Brilliant Discovery, Scorpion Wasp, which is actually a good one. I would have actually grabbed Scorpion Wasp.
Right. The thing is, Scorpion Wasp only kills one thing, whereas in theory, if you have enough units out there to block, the Sandstorm Scarf could allow you to kill multiple things. In this case, it's only resulting in chump blocks, which seem questionable.
That's true, and also I do have a bias because of caster knowledge. I do have a bias, and I think Scorpion Wasp would have been a good grab with everything, but it definitely, Sandstorm Scarf from Prime Temp's point of view, I think was the right grab.
Now, Prime Temps does get to play several cards this turn, which is definitely exciting for him.
Ooh, the chain is not going to be running out today.
Well, the chain just ran out. But
which
that's fine because Prime
that's a good
Temp's
thing.
power ran out too.
That means on top of the deck we have either a Temple Scribe or a Obelisk or a Merchant. Actually, those are and all of those cards I think I'm actually fine with having.
Yeah, in Prime Temp's situation, all of those are totally reasonable pickups. So
Prime Temps has, assuming that he's not expecting a torch from Solar Flare, if he's willing to avoid a torch, he has some phenomenal trades right here.
yeah, like wow, those are perfect blocks for Prime Temps. Is Solar Flare planning on harsh ruling, or was just trying to fake out his opponent with that threat of a torch?
I think the plan was to fake out the opponent with the threat of a torch, and if you have to wipe up with a harsh rule, you have to wipe up with a harsh rule.
I do definitely agree with wanting to wipe up with harsh rule there, even specifically because of that Waystone Infuser. Now, it turns out that having the Waystone Infuser wouldn't have really changed Prime Temp's play this turn.
Yeah, the Waystone wouldn't have been a giant thing, but well, Amelia coming down being that's actually not gonna be too big of a threat actually.
Right, yeah, 4-8 is pretty much already blanked by Prime Temp's sense that Xenon Obelisk is probably going to get played this turn.
Obelisk is going to be played, and even a torch trying to kill the kill a 1/2 to blank out the power is not going to be enough.
Right. Let's see what Prime Temps gets from the market this time. It is that Scorpion Wasp, as you thought.
Grabbing the Wasp. I think that's the second best card in the market. I think you made a really good point with the Scarf being a more long term solution. And I think Wasp right now is probably the best card for you to grab.
Right.
I'm honestly surprised though we didn't see the Obelisk go ahead and get played out.
Yeah. It's an interesting choice. But, I mean, Prime Temps is building up a really big board here and maybe is planning on, like, trying to play multiple obelisks in one turn and attack for a lot, or just trying to get as much warp value as possible before playing the obelisks. Because now we do see the obelisk and an attack with a now 8/8 Heart of the Vault.
And what we need to see from Solar Flare at this point is honestly a Merchant or a Harsh Rule, and a Torch is not going to be it.
Yeah. The thing is, even the merchant wouldn't be that incredible because there's not a harsh rule in Solar Flare's market anymore since the Akari Valkyrie Captain was sent away to go grab the first one. And I much would have preferred harsh ruling at this point than when that harsh rule was used.
That is a really good point that you made. It's difficult to keep up with what's in your market. So really a Harsh Rule or an End of Story is on top of the deck or in your hand would have been enough. But that's going to definitely wrap it up for round 2.
Yeah. Congratulations to Solar Flare for essentially winning today's tournament. We are still going to have a third round after a real short break. But Solar Flare has already won 2 out of 3 matches and was the first one to do so. See you soon. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, welcome back for round three. We're going to follow Prime Temps all the way through today and watch the last match of Prime Temps versus Lights Out Ace.
An exciting match for me because we get to see the Warp stand up, see if he can stand up to the TJP Blitz deck, or I guess that's what people are calling it, TJP Blitz.
That does seem to be what the name is landing on, but Lights Out Ace named the deck Wonder Bread Deluxe.
Well, he's allowed to name it that, but we just need to remember that he's wrong for that.
Right. I mean, Prime Temps named the Warp deck just a little off the top, which I think works really well.
That's actually a beautiful name for the deck. I think I named it Warp, so he's a little more original. And my original thought was, let's do the Time Warp again. Trying to make a reference to the phenomenal Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Yes. Now, if only you could fit fire in there. Let's do the Fire Time Warp again. That would work great.
Yeah, unfortunately, Praxis doesn't really fit in there. Let's do the Praxis Warp again.
No, that would be odd.
We need to hire somebody to just do deck names that's really good at puns.
Yeah. Just have someone to always make puns.
Right now, we're waiting for the players to get into their game. We're not sure. Looks like Lights Out Ace.
Looks like Lights Out Ace is laddering.
He's finishing up a ladder match. Should we commentate that one?
I think instead we should once again talk a little bit about our sponsors and the reason we have them.
Oh, yes, definitely. Let's go ahead and talk about our sponsor, along with the ECL, the Eternal Community League.
So we are starting in August running the Eternal Community League Invitational and the Eternal Community League that goes with it. All of our tournaments are now called Eternal Community League tournaments, and we are hosting a invitational that the top 6 points earners from across the top 16 points earners from across the month get to participate in, and that tournament at the end of the month is going to have a cash prize.
That is true. And one thing worth note is, I'm sure that some people are wondering, well, what do we do? Because there are still games that can be played after the invitational for the month. Well, those points would actually be rolled over into the next month. So as soon as the invitational is done, the following Tuesday will actually start the next season. So September is going to have a little longer of a season than August will, but that's just the way the cookie crumbles.
Yeah. Every season will wind up working out in the end. So, how do you get points?
You can get points in multiple different ways, but the best way to get points is by playing in our ECL Sunday Challenge every Sunday at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Those points count for double, and odds are they're going to be longer because we have there's going to be hopefully more players.
Yeah, the weekend is generally easier for most players to be able to play a tournament on.
The players are hopping into game right now, but we'll continue to talk about the ECL a little bit while we get in if things get a little bit boring inside of the game.
Right.
But one thing worth noting about Sunday is that you also get points for top eighting. Top eighting, top 4, and then second and first place get additional points.
Exciting.
So what we're seeing here is Prime Temps, no surprise, on the Warp deck that we have all fallen in love with today, that everyone's going to be playing on ladder tomorrow, hopefully. And against the always playable Blitz deck by the Lights Out Ace is playing.
Yeah, I do like that Blitz deck a lot, personally.
The one issue that Lights Out Ace is going to have this game is playing units. He needs to definitely rip a unit off the top.
Yeah, that is something that does definitely happen a little bit. That's a unit, and it's staying right on top real fast.
Definitely a snap keep on top. Yes, definitely.
So now here's a question from Lights Out Ace's perspective. Is there a world where, rather than playing out the Awakened Student right now, you prefer to play the depleted seat, go grab another power source off of your Seek power, and then play the Awakened Student next turn with a +1/+1?
I think that would be, you know what, you talking about that actually kind of convinces me. I would have done what Lights Out Ace does. I'm a very, I don't think through my turns. I don't take my time that I should. I think you make a really good point with that. Be able to prevent it from eating a. Well, I guess you really don't have to worry about torch in this deck. So either way you
Well,
look
it
at
would
it,
still eat a torch as a 3/3. The reason would more so be to avoid eating a hip shot. However, hip shot costs 3, so there wasn't time for that to happen anyway. So perhaps the point was moot in this particular case, and having the awakened student out to attack sooner than later was the correct play.
and the one thing that we noticed about Prime Timp's deck is that it definitely plays out like a tokens, like we've mentioned before. So he's going to have a lot of chump blocking, at least up until he Lights Out Ace digs into the market and grabs the power evolution.
You mean accelerated evolution?
Accelerated evolution, that one.
Accelerated evolution is, in my personal opinion, what makes this deck work at all.
I agree. It's kind of agitating, personally. I think it's a little bit of an agitating card, but it's kind of what you learn to expect.
Yeah, both endurance and flying are incredibly powerful keywords for this deck.
And I'm curious to know your opinion on this, but I think that Lights Out Ace missed a perfect opportunity to play the Blitz for free. I think playing the Blitz last turn would have allowed you to give it flying and double pump with the double pump with your 3/3.
What do you mean by blitz in this particular case? Are you talking about the gift of battle?
Oh yeah, playing the Gift of Battle on top of it last turn because we know that Prime Temps isn't able to kill it otherwise.
I mean, that's an option, but I also like Lights Out Ace's play here of, rather than going for a combo kill, just having big units that fly.
Oh yeah, that definitely works out too. I think either way, Lights Out Ace is going to be able to win this. Either way that he plays it out, but he's definitely taking the safe approach, which is probably smarter.
Yeah. However, that's a card.
The Scarf, the meme card.
Now, is Lights Out Ace running the tech that allows him to give those units overwhelm, in theory? Let me check.
I'm not even sure what that tech would be.
It's Talon Dive.
Talon Dive.
The units have to have flying already, but it allows you to give a flying unit overwhelm for the turn.
I do not see any Talon Dives in his 75, or I guess in this case inside of his 80.
Yeah, does not seem to be the case, which means he's going to have to find his way through a ocean of jump blockers.
Yeah, definitely a painful way by having to fight through an ocean of jump blockers. It's not what you want to have to do.
Prime Temps does, however, sniff out the buff spell of some sort that he knows that Lights Out Ace is going to have to be playing, and makes it so that Lights Out Ace just has to play both of those, which turn out to be finest hours in this particular case, and kill off all of his opponent's units.
You have to kill it. He's killing them all off, definitely.
It's written right here.
Prime Temps is going to be able to jump block.
Yeah, those jump blockers no longer look like an ocean. And here's one of those situations where I totally disagree with Lights Out Ace's line of play, because last turn before the attacks, he totally could have played that Gift of Battle onto one of the units and probably been able to get out a win, maybe even on that turn. However, it looks like Lights Out Ace is going for the conservative route, which is understandable and fair. It's probably going to still net him the win at this rate.
I think he is safe and definitely going to be able to get the win. But I think part of the issue that I have with the way that he's playing is he's not playing aggressive enough. But then again, I would have played it more aggressively. But that doesn't mean that I'm correct in doing so.
Right. I know what you mean. I think I might be looking more at the way I've played this deck on the ladder than the way that Lights Out Ace is looking to play it in this tournament.
I agree, and I think there's one card that's in Prime Tim's deck that he is afraid of, and that is the Recombobulate. I think he may be a little bit afraid of Recombobulate off the top.
Right, and Prime Temps did have that Recombobulate in hand since the start of the game.
Yep, so I think Lights Out Ace respected the combat tricks and was still able to sweep out the win for doing so.
Right.
Luckily, with this style of best of three and with no sideboarding, we should be able to hop into the next game fairly quick. Not a whole lot to think about in between games.
Yeah, that's honestly the one thing about running tournaments without sideboards that I love so much. Not having to have that downtime between games.
It's definitely something that I like.
Makes the tournament run so much more smoothly.
So, if this was a week in August where they were playing, how many points do you think? How many points would each player be getting for these wins?
Well, I would have to really quickly double check the point system because I haven't memorized it yet myself.
Okay, so the system is actually going to be really simple. It's going to be 1 point per win during the week and 1 point for showing up and playing at least 2 rounds. We don't want people showing up, signing up, playing around, and instantly losing to get a free point. We want to encourage people to play. So let's assume that Prime Temps wins this game. That would mean that he gets 3 points, 1 for each win, and then an additional point for showing up and playing. So he would rack up 4 points.
Right.
The same system goes for, the same system will actually end up going for Thursday night as well. And for our Fridays, just 1 point for showing up and playing 2 rounds. But we really want to encourage people to bring fun decks and not worry about winning as much as having fun.
Yeah. But winning still helps.
Winning definitely still helps. The last Casual Friday I ended up playing, I did end up winning, and that was one of the best feelings I've had in quite a while, was being able to win with a Ulysses Moment deck, which I thought was a little memeish, but seeing it on ladder makes me realize I might have been a little mean to bring that.
I think Ulysses Moment is a pretty cool deck, actually.
I quite like it. It kind of reminds me of the FTP Moment decks that I guess Batteries and I guess TGP kind of popularized. I love those decks.
One of the decks that TGP came up with.
It's taking players a little bit to get into game. I'm not really sure what the hang-up is,
but since there is a hang-up, we can talk about. Never mind, the players are in game.
The players jump right in and right as we try to transition.
They're making it really hard for us to talk about these sponsors, but we'll have a sponsor talk segment at the end of the event, which is going to be after this match.
That is true. Lights Out Ace keeping. What do you think about What do you think about Lights Out Ace's hand right now?
I think Lights Out Ace's hand is a completely reasonable keep here.
The one thing he's definitely going to want to see off the top is a Justice or Primal influence. But either way, that would be the best thing for him right now.
Since he currently has access to, well, a Justice and a Primal or 2 Justice, but he needs a total of 3 influences, and well, there it is. There's that Justice influence.
Rips the perfect one off the top. So looks like pretty straightforward lines of play here.
Yeah, one of the strong things about this Blitz deck is that it, even though it is tri-faction, it only requires a total of 4 influences to play everything in it.
Yeah, I agree. I think that it being so low to the ground, along with only requiring 2 Justice as the most harsh influence for the deck, I think that is a really impressive thing.
Like Prime Temps requires more total influence to be able to play all of his spells. That said, Prime Temps has all of that influence as well.
Yeah, Prime Tim, they're both players are good at this point, assuming that Lights Out Ace actually ends up playing the Justice Sigil next turn. Both players are good for the rest of the game. All they need to do is draw additional power to be able to play their units.
Yeah, or in Lights Out Ace's case, just play a unit a turn and maybe eventually spam a bunch of spells on something and win instantly, because that's how the deck works.
Definitely. Real quick, looking at Prime Temps, we can see on top of his deck in the corner that he does not have a warp unit on top, which means that it's probably going to be a power or a draw merchant card. All 3 of which, or an obelisk, which is the worst case right now. But the other options are great for him right now. He definitely wants to be drawing into more power, or definitely being able to ramp into something else.
Statistically, you would bet that it's a power.
Yeah, just based on odds, it's definitely going to be a power. I think he runs 3 obelisk main board outside of that, so 3 out of 63, 64.
Yeah, that's 3 obelisk in the main board because his 4th obelisk is in the market. Oh, and there's not exactly something you totally want to see, but it actually might work out just fine because Prime Temps could have, but didn't, play the Avarax Familiar that turn, which would then allow him to have the Workshop Forge as his next play. However,
That's a little confusing of a play for me, but I think his thought is that he can triple block right here and play around. Well, maybe not even triple block. Man, I'm not a fan of that attack right there, or that block right there.
no, like, at least double block something. Like, you could have at least traded with the Battle Mage or the Student, and instead you just double chumped.
Yeah, the double jump was a little bit of a confusing play, especially knowing what Lights Out Ace's deck is trying to do. But even playing a Equivocate would have been enough to get around it. But you would have had a little bit of value.
Yeah, and like, I generally think Praxis Tokens, like traditional Praxis Tokens, has a fairly decent matchup against these Blitz decks. Whereas so far, Prime Temps doesn't seem to be having a very incredible matchup here.
I can say I was playing the Warp deck earlier in the day. I did get a little fed up playing against the Blitz decks. I think I ended up switching to a Huru control list with splashing time for Wasp. Because I think this isn't a favored matchup, but specifically with the Warp, I think Tokens has a much better matchup than this specific Warp build.
So in this particular meta, where this Blitz deck is very popular, even though it's not necessarily consistently winning tournaments, it's definitely seeing the most play out of all different decks. Maybe now's not the correct time to be bringing this Warp list.
But in a conquest situation, if you think the Warp could hopefully tackle some other parts of the meta, you can always ban out your TJP list, because I don't think I don't think anyone's found a successful way around the faction requirements, because it's pretty demanding in the factions.
Yeah, it can be. Now, at this point, Prime Temps is pretty much out of chump blockers once again, and Lights Out Ace is jumping his Alessi for the lethal anyway, so that's going to be the match going to Lights Out Ace.
Lights Out Ace ends up taking it. I do think it's a rough matchup for the Warp deck. Man, it definitely shows, especially not having a market to ground the flyers.
Yeah, I mean, the Warp deck is running the merchants and does have the grounding scarf, but you can't always get it.
It's not always going to be an option, which is kind of in the way that the deck is faulted, right. Is that you need that and you have 4 of in your deck to grab it. It
wasn't good enough in game 1. He had it, but still lost.
I think we're actually able to jump over and watch the other match right now.
Oh, cool. We're going to be able to sneak a bit of the Overmaster versus Solarflare.
We're unsure about what the points are. It could be 1-1, it could be 0-0, or anything, since they aren't required to report after every game. But just glancing at the board, it looks like the Overmaster has control.
That does seem to be the case, but that control can be ripped away from him with that Harsh Rule that Solarflare does have in hand. However, Solarflare currently does not have the power to play that Harsh Rule, having only 4 of the 5 needed.
That is a very good point. I'm curious if I can check real quick, but I'm curious if he's actually running a market power.
I believe he is. I think we saw that in his previous match. There it is, a Rakana banner.
Yep, grabbing banner right now. Seems like the right call if you don't rip one off the top, because you're definitely on a Harsh Rule.
All right, we're getting the confirmation that Solarflare is currently up 1-0 over the Overmaster, and that means that if Solarflare doesn't find the power to play this Harsh Rule, or the Overmaster top decks a big thing, which he didn't, yeah, and that's depleted power. That Crest of Glory isn't going to do it. I think that just means that the Overmaster is going to be taking this to a game 3.
It definitely looks like a game 3 right here. I don't see him being able to chump block, especially with knowing what's in the Overmaster's hand. He's just going to be able to play the Goliath. I don't see him being able to sweep out a win right here. I think Solar
that as well. The Harsh Rule wouldn't have even been enough due to that Goliath. So we're going to get to see the penultimate game between the Overmaster and then Solarflare.
We're definitely going to be able to see a game 3 right here, which is nice, being able to watch a different matchup that's not going to be a Warp deck.
Right. And to get more of a chance to watch the Overmaster with this Reanimator list. I like that too.
I love this Reanimator list. Unfortunately, I'm missing a few too many legendaries to actually test it out. I instead decided to build Kenanades. The Kenan list where you use
Kenna. Yeah. To do various things with Kenna.
Yeah, I've actually quite enjoyed that list. And I think that's what I would have brought tonight if I wasn't casting.
I see.
I'm very excited to jump into another game. Looking at Overmaster's hand, it actually looks okay. I think Overmaster's hand looks okay right
side of things, it was a very easy keep that I absolutely agree with. Sure, there won't be much to play for the first couple of turns, but you're not super worried about that from Solarflare's side of things.
Not too worried about being able to control the board early on right now.
Yeah, you have access to the Valkyrie Enforcer, so that if your opponent does wind up reanimating something big, you can at least turn it into just a large unit and not a large unit with text like Great Kiln Titan's ability to deal damage or to play an extra thing every turn and possibly, well, it won't be dealing any Great Kiln Titan damage, but still plays something every turn.
You definitely want to be able to silence that specific ability. definitely an ability you want to be able to get rid of. And
Yeah.
he's going to be able to play it next turn with a power off the top.
Sandstorm Titan is also something you're very interested in silencing in this matchup. So the Overmaster did not wind up getting the power off the top. Now he has the options of either playing the Aurelian Merchant to get up to that 5 power for sure next turn, or, and this is the line that I might be interested in doing, the Learned Herbalist plus the Purify to kill off the Whirling Duo. However, that's probably not actually the correct play, and it's just me thinking too much into an aggro mentality. Instead, the Overmaster goes and grabs his other reanimation thing and sends away the Learned Herbalist.
I'm a little bit torn on what to do in that situation. I think I would have grabbed a banner personally. That way you can ensure that you can grasp. But I think his play might have been the correct one because you have another way to reanimate.
Right, and he figured that his opponent would have had to have silenced the Aurelian Merchant to stop him from being able to grasp right then. And even then, if the Merchant does get silenced, he could still play the Stirring Sand and have something else after that. So I do definitely like the play from the Overmaster here. Now, the Overmaster has taken his time to decide if he wants to have a Aurelian Merchant that he plays off the top of the deck at the end of the turn, or if he wants something random. He chose to keep that Aurelian Merchant there to play right now and not get anything out of the market with it. Now we see that Solar Flare is going to be casting Harsh Rule right now. You can tell by his double Whirling Duo attack. This
Definitely a Harsh Rule.
Yeah. It's so telegraphed that you definitely want to be blocking both of those units right now. And boom goes the board state.
Like I was saying earlier about the Harsh Rule issue, this is probably the one mid-range deck that can play aggressive, that can really do the Harsh Rule. To me, it just feels weird, but clearly right now it's working out very well for Solar Flare to have the Harsh Rule.
Now, here we're seeing another part of the reason why the Overmaster chose the Stirring Sand over the extra power, because that means he gets to play the Grasping at Shadows after, or it was the Stirring Sand in this particular case, to be able to have another Great Killed Titan back in play. And then the Great Killed Titan got a Grasping at Shadows, which brought back an Aurelian Merchant. Aurelian Merchant results in that Sandstorm Scarf that we can see now in Overmaster's hand. It's a good one for dealing with Valkyrie.
One thing we're going to see here is we're going to see an Ikaria get played, and then probably an Ikaria get played, and then probably another Ikaria get played.
Right. Since Solar Flare is at 38, it's going to take the Overmaster a lot of work to be able to actually kill through all that. That is one of the values of those Whirling Duos. They do gain you life, and sometimes that is relevant.
Being able to get a hit in right here is a beautiful thing by the Solar Flare. You are able to buff up by 5 with Warcry, and you can also get a free 5 damage in.
Oh, and because the Overmaster isn't expecting the second Ikaria, Solar Flare's probably going to be able to get in for more free 5 damages in the future.
No one expects a second Ikaria, and absolutely no one expects a third Ikaria.
Right. That was like some of my sealed league games today against Change Stick. So I had to deal with a Change Stick. Okay. Then I had to deal with another Change Stick. Well, that's annoying, but I still have some ways to deal with it. Third Change Stick. What am I supposed to do against 3 Change Sticks? Even though I had a Sandstorm Titan, it stops existing.
Yeah. Change Stick is quite a good card, being able to polymorph along with it. The one good thing about the Overmaster right now is that he has 5/6s against 5/5s. Even with an attack in, Solar Flare is losing 2 units, and that feels really bad.
The thing is, the theoretical unit that gets all of those war cries on it is going to be massive. Like, we could be seeing perhaps a 10-10, 20-20 unit.
We could be seeing a very large Rizon or a very large Whirling Duo, and that would be a very beautiful thing for Solar Flare. I really like that attack right there, and I think the Overmaster attacking in right here shows that he has a reanimate spell.
Right, but at this point, the Overmaster feels it's time to be reanimating a bit, because the alternative would be doing nothing, since his Great Count Titan in hand isn't exactly going to be played.
Can't tell. 7/8. Bullet Shaper is. I mean, that's like one of the worst cards you could have this on, but still a 7/8, vanilla 7/8 for 2 is a beautiful. It's a beautiful thing this late in the game. And honestly, the mana cost isn't the thing, but a 7/8 right now is definitely eating up everything.
A 7/8 is still good. Even though it's the worst thing you could hit right now, it's still totally serviceable. Now we see the Overmaster going and grabbing an Aurelian Merchant off of Grasping at Shadows and not sending either of his Great Count Titans away for anything out of the market. That's because now he has the power to play those Great Count Titans.
I definitely like keeping your Great Count Titans and hang on to... I think that's going to be how you win this game at this point. I don't think you've lost. I definitely don't think you've lost, but being able to, every turn, have a big threat.
Yeah, I think the Overmaster was correct in sacrificing the 7 life there. He just needed to. He needed to get this Great Count Titan in play to be able to start getting that added value. There's a Back Alley Delinquent.
Back Alley Delinquent pitching a Back Alley Delinquent?
No, you don't need to pitch the other Delinquent. It's just another thing you can play as perhaps a chump blocker in the future. So now Solar Flare is going to have to decide what he wants to get out of the deck with that rise to the challenge.
Nothing out of the Kaelari buff right now, so not sure what the best thing to do. Possibly a you might want to be grabbing the Rune Hammer. I think that might be a good call. Go ahead and kill the Sandstorm Titan.
Yeah, that would allow Solar Flare to kill off that Sandstorm Titan, which is definitely relevant, but there'd still be that 9/7 Great Count Titan.
The 9/7 will trade with the 7/8. It's not preferred, especially against a Reanimator deck. But what we know is that there is another Great Killing Titan in hand.
Solar Flare does make a strong pick there with the Rizan, though, because not only does that mean that the Overmaster has to block that 7 attack, because Rajan could kill just by being played, but Rajan has lifesteal, and that's exactly what you need at this point.
The lifesteal is so beautiful. Even it blocking next turn is going to be 7 more life than you had before. Especially, it's going to be able to trade with the Titan if the Titan decides to attack in.
That it will. Oh, and look at that. Yeah, Solar Flare just attacks with the Ikaria and plays the Herschel. As good as that seems, that's going to result in a loss to the Overmaster.
It could result into a loss because, but he has to rip a power off the top.
You're right.
He has to rip actually quite a few because he lost all the merchants.
Yeah, you're right. That's not going to be an instant loss.
Heart of the Vault sitting on top of the deck is what you definitely want to be seeing right now. Play that out and hope.
Ooh, 3 cost Grasping at Shadows, that's something for sure. Allows him to get back another Great Killing Titan if he so desires. And the thing is,
That could be the play, grabbing another Great Kill Titan.
Thing is, Solar Flare now gains quite a bit of life and also puts the Overmaster in a worrisome life total situation as well. Now,
Man.
it's absolutely correct for the Overmaster to attack here with the Heart of the Vault, because that means Solar Flare has to block with Rajan, or just does.
I like attacking, but the first thing I would do is sabotage. I would definitely make sure there's not going to be any combat tricks.
It's open deck list. You don't care about that. You know his deck. There's not combat tricks.
That is true. There's not going to be any combat tricks. So grasping, bring back a Heart of the Vault, maybe.
Yeah,
or, Great
in
Kill
this
Titan.
particular situation, I think Heart of the Vault is the correct grasping at Shadow's target. But the Overmaster is going for the Great Come Titan, hoping to perhaps get that Lava Blood Goliath for lethal off the top. Sure, it's not lethal this turn, what am I saying? But
Rajan eating the Ikaria buff. That's definitely what you want to see right there. That's
yeah.
13 life. And that's a torch off the top is lethal. A torch or another Rajan.
Yeah, and that's a decent percentage of Solar Flare's deck at this point. Like a 1 in 10. Maybe a bit less than that.
I'm not sure. This is an interesting attack by the Overmaster. It forces Solar Flare to either block or hope that he doesn't have a reanimate spell for a Heart of the
It
Vault.
might actually be a bit higher than 1 in 10 because a merchant also gets the Rajan out of the market.
It gets the Rajan and it can actually play it too. That's true.
Exactly. Runehammer, however, is not what Solar Flare was looking for. Solar Flare is going to just have to take 11 damage this turn and feel really lucky that the Overmaster just drew another Lava Blood Goliath that can't be cast right now. Ooh.
Ooh, banner off the top it definitely feels bad. Playing this to gain 1 power or one armor sounds great, but unfortunately that's still not going to be enough to save you.
So the Overmaster does wind up managing to beat Solar Flare, which is pretty exciting for him. He at least managed to take down the tournament winner tonight. That got to count for something, right?
He takes the win, yes. That was a really interesting matchup. I really enjoyed watching that one. The ending got really stressful.
It definitely did, but it was very exciting to watch too.
It definitely was exciting to watch. I love games like that where it comes down to the end where people are top decking and it comes down to did you put enough good stuff in your deck to win the game.
Right. Now, I think we have the perfect opportunity to officially make this announcement without actually getting interrupted by having a match to go watch.
Now is definitely the best time to talk about our weekly events. These aren't the events that Dire Wolf does. The Eternal Tournament website. Basically what we're doing is every month we're going to be having an invitational, and the invitational is going to have a cash prize supported by the community, and there's actually quite a few ways to add free money. There are coupon codes in which you could enter, which we will be giving out very soon, and there are ways that you can go and follow people's follow Twitters and stuff to add like 25 cents, and all that definitely adds up. Personally, my favorite way to support the prize pool is to buy Soylent because the Soylent is far too good of a deal for them to be making any money off of.
Wait,
But just-
Soylent as in Soylent Green? Isn't that people?
Soylent Green is people, but luckily none of this is green. It's all white from what I see, white or brown.
I see.
But as far as the point structure goes, to get one of those invitational slots, we have 4 events that you can gain points at. We have a Tuesday night, like what you're watching right now. We have a Thursday night, which is going to be the same format as this, but it's going to be Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard. That is more targeted towards EU players. NA players still feel free to play it, but the time is specifically targeting towards the European players. Both of those are 1 point for entering and playing 2 rounds. We just want to make sure that you're actually playing the games and you aren't just trying to get a free point by playing a game and quitting. You get 1 point for each win. So tonight you could get up to 3 points because we had 3 rounds.
Well, up to 4 points. 1 for participating.
Oh, yeah.
And 3 for winning.
That is true. Round. So let's assume that we have enough players and we cap out at 4 rounds. You could technically gain 5 points for a Tuesday win and a Thursday win. And for Casual Fridays, we still want to keep it to where you bring fun decks and try new things and try to enjoy Eternal. That is 1 point for entering and playing 2 rounds. Those are great ways to get points. But the real money for making your points is going to be for the ECL Sunday Challenge every Sunday at 12 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, except for the Invitational, which will be the last Sunday of every month. And that is a Swiss Conquest. It's 4 decks with 1 ban. You bring 4 decks. Your opponent gets to ban one of your decks. You get to ban one of their decks blindly. And we cut to top 8. Each win for those will count for 2 points. So odds are we'll have like 6 rounds. So if you sweep that, you get 12 points just for winning, an additional point for showing up, and our top 8 has additional points with 10, 15, 20, and 25 points that can be earned just for top 8ing.
That sounds like a lot of points. Pretty good way of giving yourself a very decent chance of getting into the Invitational and the chance for that cash prize.
Absolutely. And one interesting thing about the Invitational is it's going to be a little different than the way we've been playing Eternal previously. It's still going to be a Swiss, or no, it's not going to be a Swiss. It's going to be a Conquest 4 decks with 1 ban, but we're actually going to do a double elimination tournament. That'll allow us to have more games being able to play and be able to play. We won't have to worry about doing groups or anything like that. It's just going to be straight up lose 2, you're out. And we'll be able to flow from game to game pretty effortlessly because games are going to be running simultaneously throughout the day.
Right. So, Matcherino is how we are funding this prize pool. That's where you can go and submit our code that you can see on the stream chat right now to donate 50 cents to the prize pool for absolutely no cost to you. That just is money that essentially Matcherino will be giving to the players for the August 2018 Community League Invitational. And alongside that, there's a set of sponsors that you can add more money to the prize pool by doing some various actions that are generally Twitter focused, where you're following, maybe retweeting various different Twitter posts or visiting websites like what is currently on there. And that's just a tiny bit of your time, especially if you have like a throwaway Twitter account. That's, once again, more money to the players. And, you know, maybe if you wind up being in the tournament, that could wind up being money that goes to you. Alongside that, there are ways to spend your own money to participate in bringing that prize pool up. For $1, you can get shouted out on the stream during the Invitational. For $5, you get that stream shout out and the supporter role in the Discord, in the Great Parliament Discord. For $15, you can get coaching, where the Great Parliament pro players will help you get better at the game. And for only $25, you can actually advertise on our stream as a way of, say you have something you want people to see on our stream. Well, here's a way to get them to see it. Beyond that, you can also donate to certain members of the team and have part of that go to the tournament. Currently, that's Cygnus Infinity. Oh, hey, look, that's me and The Rock, who is not Dwayne The Rock Johnson, even though the picture he's using over there does show Dwayne The Rock Johnson. Additionally, you can also Buy Soylent. Soylent is a sort of meal supplement in a drink. And right now, if you buy that through Matcherino, you're getting essentially 12 meals for the price of $30, and 100% of that $30 goes into the prize pool. Like, you're essentially buying something and then having the whole price of the thing go to this tournament prize pool. And due to that Soylent option right there, the prize pool is actually currently sitting at $73 because a certain guy named Duncan Wren bought $60 worth of Soylent.
I'm really excited to try out the Soylent. I'm absolutely not being paid anything to try this. I'm paying out of my own pocket to try this stuff. But think about it. I'm having to spend $34 plus shipping if I buy it on Amazon or anywhere else. And none of that money is going towards a prize pool. So here I'm spending $30 to get the exact same amount that I would be spending $24 plus shipping. And I'm getting free shipping, and it's only costing $30. Like, even if you don't care about tournaments at all, and you just care about Soylent, this is the best way to buy the Soylent. They have so many different flavors. Like, they have the vanilla one, which I probably should have gotten. They have a cocoa one, which is probably just chocolate. And the one that I ended up getting was a coffee one, and I'm excited to try that because my situation is that I don't eat breakfast. I'm a very unhealthy person. I eat a decent lunch and a decent dinner, but my breakfast is non-existent. I usually just eat a bag of chips and drink a soda. But this is going to be a really good way to see if I can supplement that because I want to be able to eat and drink on the go. And eating a sandwich while driving a car is not realistic for me.
Right. And as you said, this is literally the cheapest way to get this Soylent. Everywhere else, you're going to have to pay $34 and probably have to pay shipping as well. Whereas here, it's $30 instead of $34 and free shipping. It's a better deal for everyone involved. So Matcherino is actually only one of our two sponsors. We also are sponsored by Inked Gaming. You've probably heard of them at this point if you're fairly familiar with the Eternal Tournament scene. So, what does Inked Gaming produce?
Inked Gaming produces playmats for games such as Magic the Gathering and other physical card games, and they also produce mouse pads. And I actually just bought one of their mouse pads. It wasn't given to me. I paid out of pocket to get a mouse pad, and I'm in love with the thing. It is my issue with mouse pads is a lot of them are now having a plastic film on top, and I do not like that. I prefer the playmat style where it has that I'm not sure what to call it,
that more fabric-y feel.
Yeah, the fabric-y feel. It definitely has that fabric-y feel, and the mouse is very smooth on it.
Sure.
I've been using a playmat that I bought from an SCG event years ago. I've been using that, and since this ink pad, this mouse pad from Inked came in, I've actually just been using that on top of the mouse, on top of the playmat. So I think it actually is a phenomenal mouse pad on its own, and they're actually really fairly priced.
Definitely reasonable, and it's important to point out that you can make your own custom designs for stuff like those mouse pads and stuff. So whatever you want it to look like, you can have it look like that.
I've seen a lot of people do a lot of interesting things. A personal favorite is some local guys at our game stores made playmats from Inked, where it was them posing like the old Brian Kibler one, a very sexual pose for these chubby guys, and it's my favorite thing in the world. And we actually have a code for Inked Gaming if you want to use it. I'm pretty sure it's TGP12.
That is correct.
That's 12% off of your order.
There is, of course, a link to that down below the stream. There's also a link to the Matcherino to be able to support for that. So we hope to see you at least adding to the prize pool for free. It's no cost to you. And we hope to see you around here watching and or playing in our future tournaments.
Definitely, at no cost, especially if you're able to play in the events or watching them. definitely during breaks or something, pulling up a Matcherino and just doing something, even just a little bit every week is great. And definitely check out the deals that they have with the Soylent, because check out Soylent, because I've done a lot of research on that. I think that is the best way to get Soylent.
Yeah, it seems to be the case. We're pretty much sponsored by Soylent as well. Not officially, but pretty much.
Soylent, we swear it's not people.
Now you're just gonna make it sound like it is people.
But I think that's all that we have to talk about.
Yeah.
A lot of this is going to be the points and everything. I know that there's some concerns about the points being too heavy for Tuesdays and Thursdays. If that does become an issue, we can always adjust them for future months. But I'm really excited to see how August plays out. And we know that there's already going to be a cash prize because somebody went and spent a lot of money on Soylent. And if he likes it, he's going to do this every single month.
So,
which is the best thing possible.
What is the first day that our TGP tournaments, or our Eternal Community League tournaments, as they now are going to start awarding these invitational points?
So it's August 1st, but the first event we're actually going to have is August 2nd. It's a Thursday weekly event, and that will be August 2nd. We'll have that, and they'll run through August 26th, which will be our invitational.
So that is a week from our next event. Our next event is, of course, the more EU time zone targeted Thursday tournament that will be running on Thursday, of course, starting at 1 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time.
Yep, and this week is a great time to test out and see if you like Conquest. A lot of people who I've seen come and play Conquest have thought about that they wouldn't like it whenever they tried it, but whenever they started playing it, they really enjoyed the how difficult it was to build a correct lineup.
Right, a lot of people have gone in with negative expectations, but then found that the added skill of coming up with what decks you want to bring is a lot of fun.
And if you're not a giant fan of Conquest, or you want to grind out with just one deck, Tuesdays and Thursday nights are still going to be a Swiss best of 3, and those are great ways to practice one of your Conquest decks.
Yeah, so thank you all to everybody for watching and playing, and have a wonderful night.